Your life is in the toilet because your brain is mush. This is something that took me a long time to figure out, but I really realized it in myself because of my diet, my history, my lack of emotional control, things like that. So over time, what I realized was if we're not taking care of our brain, then everything else in our life is just going to keep going downwards. It's going to be really hard to make good decisions, get good sleep, be effective at work, lead a fulfilling life, be able to, handle relationships and things like that. So what ends up happening is we blame our problems for our problems, but I think a lot of times what's actually happening is we actually have a very weak brain. It's not healthy. We haven't been eating right. And especially in our modern society, what happens is, we eat a lot of processed food. We have a lot of toxins in our environment. We don't get a lot of natural light. But the real problem is it's been happening for a couple generations now. So the last generation, they really started eating processed food. And what that did is that made their genetics weaker. So we inherited those slightly weaker genetics. And what that produced was a slightly weaker brain by default already to begin with. And then you think about it, most of us grew up on Kool-Aid and preservatives and cereal and all these things that were just furtherly destructive to the brain. And then we were all plopped in front of a television, which, only created a certain amount of neural pathways. So I think with all these problems compounded, what happens is we have a world that's a mess. We have a lot of Americans with a lot of problems that they can't deal with. One, because they haven't been equipped with how to deal with them and reprogram their subconscious. And two, because even if they could, it's so difficult to be able to do that when you're in an unhealthy state that they're just not getting anywhere at all. So I hope this video actually will help along those lines. So the first thing I really do want to emphasize is if your brain isn't healthy, then stop making decisions. Just take a break, because most likely you're overthinking things. You're blaming all these things on certain things, but I guarantee you there's probably a good chance that your chemicals are out of whack inside. And if we start getting all the neurotransmitters working properly and your hormones working properly, that's going to start to put things in order, and you'll actually start to find that making decisions will be easier. It's great. It's just like I say with a lot of my other videos, eating right, sleeping right, getting plenty of exercise, leading a fulfilling life, having a partnership or some kind of relationship with people, something deeper and intimate if possible. All those things are going to create that upward cycle. But this is the root, and this is why, is because we want our brain to be healthy. And when our brain is healthy, all those things we do with more fun. We don't do with stress. If you're the kind of person who's driving to work and you're all stressed out and driving to work, that's part of the reason. But the other part of the reason is you have that downward cycle happening as well. When you are constantly putting cortisol into the body, that's really bad for the brain, because when we're in fight or flight, the brain shuts down because the body needs to be able to run and move and do all those things. So all that blood goes down into the body. And that's another good reason why we want to do things like meditation and calming exercises, because we want to be able to eliminate that cortisol. One, we want to try to eliminate the problems that are coming in. And then two, we want to minimize the problems that already exist and solve them as much as we can. So the best thing we can do is, take a look at our diet, take a look at our exercise, just do an audit of our daily life and look at the things that might be unhealthy for the brain, and then start putting the good things in the body. Omega-3 fats are really good. Krill oil, fish oil, eating real fish, things like that, real foods, pulling away from the processed foods and the preservatives and anything you can. But it is on a spectrum. It's not a matter of, it's not life or death in black and white. Don't just cut everything off tomorrow. We can't fully eliminate all the toxins in our environment. You're going to have to live around some of those toxins. But if you minimize most of them to your best of your ability, you'll find that you're going to be a lot healthier and be breathing a lot better. We look at hormones and things like that. There's a lot of endocrine disruptors in a lot of the everyday products we use and even put on our body. And for me, the way I look at it is there's a very delicate balance at the electrochemical level between cells in the body. We don't want to disrupt that. So if things like, endocrine disruptors or fake sugars like sucralose or aspartame are interrupting the way that cells talk to each other, that's going to interrupt the way that we feel inside. And that's how all of these things come around each other. So I hope you found this video helpful. I really don't want your brain to be mush. Let's get your life out of the toilet, but let's start by fixing your brain first, taking care of the physical stuff, get yourself feeling better and into a state where you can handle the ability to take those next steps, deal with those stressful things that you have to deal with, or work really hard to save money, whatever that may be. Let's get your brain healthy first, and then we'll go from there. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Thank you.